Well, happy Monday and happy April. I cannot believe we're in April. This tends to be the craziest and busiest uh, about 4 to 6 weeks for student ministry with transition dinners, transition events, Flubber Never. We're adding a small group leader night this year. And so it's an exciting time because it's really a gauger of here's where we are, and then groups coming in, here's where we're at as we move into the summer and next year, and then also the Flubber Never is here's where we're heading, and just really exciting moments. And so I hope you're ready for some of that. You've gotten in your emails what things, if you're a middle school small group leader, you need to try to be at, and I really encourage you because we're going to be talking about you a lot as small groups, and really the thrust of our Wednesday nights and what we're looking to accomplish through those small groups. And then if you're high school, the same thing. And then, of course, remember, May 2nd, sorry, I had to look at my board, small group leader night. I need you all there. We are going to celebrate you. The students are already starting to know some things. Hopefully they're not telling you those things. We're starting to inform parents this week who are also going to have a part in that. And so please don't miss out. We want to celebrate you. And so if you have something on your calendar that can be moved, please move it. I would hate for your small group not to have their leaders there that night. And so if both of you are going to be gone, please let me know that. We need to make sure that we think through that a little bit. But please try to be there May 2nd. What I wanted to do just for a few minutes today for our April training is we are getting ready to start meeting. I gave April a break, so we're going to start meeting in May, and we're going to set up a meeting with leaders and co-leaders from each group. And each group is in a different place. Some are in totally different places than others. And so just talking through this year, what did we learn? What was good? What was not good? And then most importantly, going, here's what your group's going to look like next year. Here's particularly for transition groups coming in to ninth grade. That is going to be a huge transition. And so we want to talk through that, make sure we do it well. For some of you groups, you have 3 leaders, how that's going to be broken out and split apart. Just a lot of different things we need to talk to, because transitions many a times are the worst things in student ministry. And yet they're actually the most healthy thing in student ministry if they're done well. Because transition tells us that we're growing, things are healthy and good, and we have to begin thinking through what's next. And so I want to bring you in on that. So as we approach that, though, I really feel like there's been a churning within me over the past just 2 months. So it's fresh and it's new. I'm on my 4th year here at Legacy, and so I'm finishing up my 4th school year in May, starting my 5th school year in August, and 7 years is a full cycle. And so we're about 3 years away from a full cycle ministry. 18 months is the national average tenure of a student minister at a church. And so we have far past that, and getting a chance to see some things unfold over the past year has been really good for me to be thinking about what's next. And I really think what's next is what I want to talk about today. And what's been really helpful for me, and you're going to start seeing some of this come out, I'm going to show you this real quick, is if you ever walked through our discovery classes, you would have gotten something that looks something that looks similar to this. And the idea of this is that in one quick snapshot, someone could take this and walk through, here's Legacy. Here's our leaders, here's our ministry, here's Gospel Center Vision, etc., etc. Well, we're going to be putting something together like that over the course of the summer for student ministry. And what I really want is I actually want it to be this size, but a tri-fold pamphlet. And so it is the simple, you can take it, look at the front, open it, in the middle gives the whole scope of everything we do. And then on the back talks, there's one page devoted simply to parent partnership, because parents are going to be the ones reading it. And the idea is I really want everything to be as clear as possible. I want you as small group leaders to know, here is my role. And some of that's been cloudy because we've been figuring out what's the span and what's the realm of possibility for small group leaders. And there's a lot of churches doing it this way and a lot of churches doing it that way. And so what's right for our church? I want the parents to know what's my role and what can I expect, and what should you expect from me? And then I want our church to know, here is what is needed of me. And here's what's going on in student ministry and how we can pray. And here's why they go on trips. And here's why they do small groups. And here's why they do Wednesday nights. And I want it to be so streamlined and simple. And most importantly, I want a student to know that from 6th to 12th grade and their parent, this is what we're going to get. And so this is going to help us. But I think at the root of that, I have some very simple answers. And I want to share those with you because what's coming is a transition. And some of you are transitioning out because it's a new season. Some of you are transitioning into 2 more years, or you're finishing up your second of your 2 years. There's going to be new leaders. And I want to reiterate a focus, and then I want you to begin thinking and processing through these things with me. Because in our next meetings, we're going to talk through those things. In a book called Gospel-Centered Youth Ministry, it's the Gospel Coalition team, their team of student ministers put together this book, and it's a great book if you ever want to just kind of get an inside of Nick's head and inside of Nick's heart of what we're trying to accomplish. And it takes years to unfold this, but we're slowly getting there. I see it, and you're a part of that. Is they do a great job of going, what should be at the core, what should be the root of what we are accomplishing every single week, every single trip, every single small group Wednesday, every single fun event, to the Mavs game and the zoo and jump. What should we be accomplishing? Because in this book they go, all of that's necessary in student ministry. They agree with it, and I agree with it. But what should we be accomplishing? And here's what they say. There should be 2 things that drive our mission and our passion. So what we do and what we feel for ministry to youth. And here it is. We long to see God heal, redeem, and free young people as they trust Jesus personally. And we long to see God birth something beautiful and redemptive in this broken world through their lives as they bear witness to their Savior. That's it. That's the gospel-centeredness of our student ministry. That Jesus would be at the core of it all. And I want to read you this last part of this chapter. It says, youth ministry with a complete view of the gospel places the cross at the foundation of its missional endeavor. Students do not simply do mission trips and service to the poor because they represent good deeds to which Scripture calls us. Our response to the gospel drives everything. That's what we want our students to get. That's the motivation. The gospel has done what? Oh, that's my response. Youth workers constantly should remind their kids, the students, that their lives and service are a part of God's total work to redeem fully the whole world for the sake of Christ, and they're a part of that. And so everything we do on Wednesday night should be to point students to the gospel. Everything you say in your small group shouldn't be about your life, shouldn't be about your experience. It should be the gospel. The gospel is what's going to motivate students. It's what's going to change them. And then it's what should be what compels and motivates them to live a different life than those around them, to live countercultural, which is what we're going to talk about in Atlanta to set us up for next year. And so that's the idea. That's what we want to get out of it. And so the next question then becomes, as small group leaders, what is your primary role? And we have turned and churned, and it's one of the reasons I stopped going through this book, because it really felt like we hit a wall with taking that next step. And And then you're going, oh, and then you're going to add parent partnership. We haven't even gotten there. And it's really made me think a lot about, what do I really want from you as small group leaders? What do we really feel like here at Legacy is the role of a small group leader? And really where I've landed, and like I said, the past 2 months, is your primary role as the student. And what I mean by that is, I'm not ever sure that parent partnership for our small group leaders is ever going to go beyond, you should at least know their names, you should at least have a conversation with them when you see them, and you should at least, if they're in middle school, you should at least be filtering communication through the parents. The rest of what we are looking to do with parents is going to come from me, and it's going to come from a different team, because we do know that's a huge hole. But student ministry without the parents is lacking. Student ministry without the gospel is nothing. And so your primary role is in the life of that student, that you are talking and talking over and over and over about the gospel. And you're putting in front of them any moment you possibly can. That's why we want you to come on trips. That's why we need you here consistently on Wednesdays. That's why we want you to take a few times throughout the semester and go a little bit further and beyond, to go to a basketball game and support them and be present, not just to share the gospel with them, but also to share your lives. 1 Thess 4:8. That they see your lives and they see you investing just as Jesus invested. And at the same time, then we over on this side should be coming around and partnering with the parents to make sure the same things happen in the home. And that's going to be an exciting part we're going to be talking about with parents this year. But your primary role has to be that student, and it has to be the gospel infiltrating that student's life over and over and over. That it is what changes them, but it's also what should motivate them to live a life that's countercultural within their schools, around their peers, and for some of them in their homes. And so I get excited because I really feel like there's going to be a fun movement in the next year. And I know I say that every year because the next movement is always fun. But this next one is going to be really unique because in a growing student ministry, our emphasis has got to stay the gospel. And we're going to push that really, really hard next year. I want you as students, and you as leaders, and I want our students to understand, what is this gospel you keep talking about? And I want you to be able to lead from it. And so I love you. I hope this was an encouragement of just starting to begin talking through, here's where we're heading, and here's what's next. And beginning to get excited about that, realizing you're going to be a part of those conversations coming up within the next month, and begin praying through my role. And is this what I still want to continue to do? Do I love students enough to pass on the gospel to them over and over and over? We won't see you Wednesday. You'll read this in the email. I'll be gone this week, but you're in good hands. The fort will be held down, and I look forward to seeing y'all next week. Bye.